Welcome to the Escology Podcast. This is Cliff, and we are joined today by Chris Pate. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Cliff. How are you doing today?
Good, sir. Good. So regarding current involvement in the car audio industry and competition, I'd say Chris is the most involved individual possibly that there is. And I'd say that knowing that Chris wasn't at finals this year, some excuse about SEMA rush and being in France or something. But Chris is the owner of a significant car audio retailer, Mobile Toys Inc., and MTI Acoustics, manufacturing upscale subwoofer enclosures. He's an accomplished competitor whose center drive Civic has affected not only rule changes, but also the development and sunsetting of entire competition divisions, in addition to his brainchild, the Aggieland Invitational, going on its 7th run in 2019, which, other than the original Masters, has probably given away more money than any other cardio competition that I can think of, and is set to give away close to $15,000 this coming year. On the retailer side, Chris's shop is extremely accomplished, having multiple locations and catering to the surrounding college community and pickup culture. In the past couple of years, Chris has earned not only the Retailer of the Year award with Mobile Electronics, but also the Installer of the Year award. He regularly leads fabrication workshops and teaches several classes at Knowledge Fest, in addition to building and demoing vehicles at Knowledge Fest, CES, and most recently at SEMA. I'm sure I've missed a few dozen accomplishments in the past year or two, but let's back up for a second. Chris, would you mind sharing with us some of how you got into car audio in the first place and when?
Yeah. A lot like everyone else. You start off as a kid, your brother and your dad are into it. Next thing you know, you're sitting in your dad's 92 S10 pickup with a test light trying to hook up a Pioneer dual shaft radio and not burn it up. It's basically just like that. You watch your older brother, run around with his original kicker 18s and back with his little Datsun, and you just kind of get hooked just like that. East side of Houston, and there's a lot of great shops there, a lot of good installers. Back in the day, we're out there, so you get a lot of cool things to look at, a lot of cool things to look up to. That's really how it started. Go through high school, and next thing you know, you're at college and going to college and working at Circuit City.
Did you get into working in the industry before you got into competition then? Yeah.
So the first one I ever went to was in 98. I didn't actually compete at a finals. I think it was 2000 was the first one I ever competed at. So I didn't really start competing till probably late 99 is when I actually started competing.
Okay.
I missed the heyday as far as competing, as far as really being and going at it. So by the time I was there, they still had, you still had 20 plus cars a class in 2000, but 30 plus cars a class. But, it wasn't like it was at all back in 95. I really missed a lot of that.
How'd you get into the industry then? Was Circuit City and then working up from there? Or?
Yeah, Circuit City, and from there, worked there for 5 years, was an S&I manager and was doing custom work on the side, and, really outgrew what we could do at Circuit City, and then went and worked at a custom shop in town that had a guy that competed there, and that was really the first time where I did anything. Where I started messing around with competition stuff was at that shop. I was there for like a year, and then ended up at Audio Video after that, which is ultimately the shop that I worked for that grew into Mobile Toys, and then I bought, later on after working for Rob Rice. That's really kind of how that all developed, being in the industry, and, that whole cycle of starting, you just doing it in your garage, and then you start doing it part-time as a career, and just next thing you know, it's a full-time career.
Right. When you were in Tulsa, that was kind of when the idea started getting going for doing the Aggieland Invitational, right?
So, like I said, the thing about me was that I missed what I consider the stuff like when everybody knows I'm really good friends with Gary Biggs and Wilson Adcock and Nick Wingate and Mickey Bronis. Those are guys that I came up with. Those were guys that I ran with for years. So I hear all these stories that I was never a part of, and it was just like the coolest stuff. Perry, Georgia, and just all these fantastic shows that used to happen back in the day. And I was never a part of it. I feel like I was because these are my friends and I've heard the stories 1,000 times, but I was never there.
Right.
So I'm in Tulsa, and I'm working for Rob Rice, who was a part of all that as well. And to me, I go to Rob and I said, man, it'd be cool to do that again to a degree, but put our own spin on it. And I pitched the idea to him, and Don was the GM at the time, and Gary wasn't working there, but he was working for JBL and for Harman. Hey, I think this would be a good idea. And, they said, well, hey, if you can we can get sponsorship dollars together. And they were totally behind it. Thankfully, Rob was a fantastic retailer. So it's a lot easier to put stuff together like that when you're a retailer that does numbers. And
Right.
we were able to do that. And that was really where it all started. The $10,000 money round had a massively big turnout. I mean, we had Rob, that shop, Car Toys, is obviously still in business, owned by Charles Stewart now, but is right across from a Super Walmart. We had a third of the Super Walmart parking lot taken up that they allowed us to use,
Wow.
with cars, and this massive big circus tent that was next to Car Toys, and that was in cold air blowing in there. And that's, everybody would stage in the Walmart parking lot and then come through to Rob. So it was a big, huge parking lot show, but it just happened to be the coolest parking lot show, in a long time. And it turned out to be a fantastic event, and it was a lot of fun. It was a blast.
What year was this?
Oh my gosh. So I left Rob's in 2009. I want to say that was probably 2008 or 2007. And I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
Sure, if I scroll through my pictures, there's a picture of me and Steve Head with the trophy last year before last at
Right.
Aggieland. I want to say it was 2007 or 2008 when we did that.
Was this before or after you had built the Civic?
The Civic was built, but the Civic, obviously, just like with all of us that have these cars, they take many forms. So the Civic is actually what got me to Tulsa. I was going back and forth and working on the Civic with Gary Biggs. And, ultimately they needed somebody at Car Toys, and I had never moved anywhere. I'd been with the same shop forever and hadn't gotten a raise, and they offered me more money. And so I was like, heck with it, let's go to Tulsa. And I could work over there with Gary, and obviously Mark Eldridge was there too, so it was cool. And it was a lot of really good minds to work around, even though they didn't work for Car Toys, but, we would go work over there at night. We finished up the Civic that year for finals. It was a 2-seat car then. That was whenever we had the removable steering wheel that pulled out of it and everything, so it looked like the car had no steering system in it when we were at shows. That was when we first built the Civic. It still had 2 seats though then. But it has the current paint job it has on it now, but it was that same car.
What got you to decide to do a center drive in the Civic?
So when we would go to shows, me and Mickey would always tell me, funny stories. Mickey Bronis would. We would banter back and forth. And he's like, hell, someone should just put a couple home speakers left and right and build a center drive car. And that was always the running joke to do.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I'd moved back to College Station and bought Mobile Toys, and I was like, let's do something different. Let's push the envelope as far as we can, that we feel like we can push it within the rules. And I took a long look at IASCA rules and USAC rules, and there was nothing saying that I couldn't do it. As most people that know me, I live within the area. If you don't want someone to do it, then write a rule.
Right.
Otherwise, if it's not written, it doesn't count. And so
Right.
if it's not in the rules, it's not in the rules. And that's always been my motto. If you don't want somebody to do it, then you should put a rule. So they hadn't. And I made a couple jokes about building the car that way to rebuild the Civic. And I was in the process, had it torn apart. By this point, it had won a couple 2 or 3 expert titles at that point. It had won 3 USAC expert world titles at that point. We were fortunate enough to beat Mark Eldridge with it that way, and some other good guys. It didn't mean it never lost at that point. I think that it did. That the only time it has lost was the very first year we had it out with the 2 seats in it, and we had prototype amps when they went down, which was a hilarious ordeal. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was using prototype amps, which I refuse to ever do again.
Handmade stuff is great.
Oh yeah, it's great. Hey, let's see, these prototypes are going to totally work good as they all blow up. The whole antithesis behind it was just, it was really kind of a joke. It really was. We were going to heat wave. The car was the way it was with no steering, and they had a flat floor. So I just unbolted the seat and made a couple brackets and put one seat in the middle. And it was really going to be a joke. And just, I knew pictures would get out there, and that was going to be it. It was going to go no farther than that. And Eldridge shows up. Eldridge was there because he was, I don't know if he was working for jail yet or if he was repping, and that's what he was doing, but I think he was repping jail at that point. So he was there in their booth, and there, lo and behold, is Eldridge with the NASCAR. And Eldridge comes over there, and I look over, and Nick had texted me while I'm in the car because the car's totally blacked out. He goes, Eldridge is here. I go, oh, this is going to be funny. And Mark walks up, and he just looks at me. He goes, you actually did it. And I go, and he walks off. And I go, and that's how the whole thing started. It was never intended to do anything to make people mad or anything. I just wanted to push.
Right.
I really did it as a joke. And then when everybody got all up in arms about it, that's when I said, well, then I'm really going to do it. And so that's really
fine.
I was like, well, if that's how it's going to be, and that's how it's going to be, and I'm just going to go ahead and, we tore the car apart and we rebuilt it as a center drive, changed the front stage entirely, and changed the car to basically pretty much the way it is now. Well, I guess not exactly the way it is now, but pretty much the way it is now.
Right, right.
And that was really the antithesis behind it was if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. We're going to, we're going to laser align the drivers. We're going to build it like a high-end home cabinet built out of Baltic birch. And, we're going to basically put home speakers and do a small near-field sound environment was what we were going to do. We had great success with it, and it was a lot of fun. And I think for me, that year we went to Daytona and won IASCA finals would probably be to me, the coolest year ever at finals. It was a lot of fun. That was really when me and Scott really started getting along. Scott Waldo I didn't really know Scott very well at that point. I knew of him and we were always very cordial, but I really didn't know him super well. And because of all the fuss, me and him got separated out into two different classes. So it worked out great because had I been in the class with Scott, I'd have lost just like everybody else that year. Because that was the year Scott, I think it was like a 950 or 995 or whatever he got, the highest score ever. Because everyone had thrown such a fit, and the rules got changed, and they single, expert solo or whatever it was called, right, became a class that left room for me to be able to win. It turned out to be a lot of fun. It was stressful. Didn't really at the time, didn't want to make anybody mad. It was just, I was going to do my thing, and it was a lot of fun. We had I can't remember who was the judge here. It was some studio engineer that judged that class, and he got out of the car and he was like. He goes, the closest thing he'd ever heard to his studio monitors in a car. And I just looked over at Nick and I didn't even know what to say. And I was like, thank you. And, we get our scores back and we got I know we got a perfect score in imaging and 1 point off in tonality. And I know we got the plaque that year for highest sound score. It was a super memorable time. It wasn't it was definitely, I looked at Nick, the car had been together and had been to one other show, and that was it. We took it to the spring break, the USAC spring break show in South Padre. And so the car hadn't really had a lot of tuning on it. It hadn't, drivers really weren't, they were broken, but they weren't as good as they could get. It was a lot of fun. It was a very memorable time, doing it. So, and it's still that way to this day.
That year, I think, was kind of the source and summit of everybody's complaints now about car audio because you split out expert solo, which gave room for that many more one-seat classes because even though it was made for years, what it really ended up was just a one-seat expert class. And then that same year was then when they separated install from sound because Scott was winning on install. So between the two of you, you just ruined expert.
And it's funny. We've talked about it many times, and it's funny the rule changes that exist because of the things that we did, and
all in 1 year,
all in 1 year. And I live, when we compete, that was always the goal, was to find the not necessarily the loophole, but find the place where you could maximize your point. Find the place where you could maximize it out. Live in the gray area, whatever you want to call. Right. Scott did it his way, which probably without a doubt the best install presentation of all time, and he probably is the best. Period. But that year in particular, without a doubt, that the book was amazing. It was just completely over the top. The car was obviously unbelievable. And, it was just, and it sounded awesome too. That's the thing. It wasn't like it was just install. The car sounded awesome. Right.
But it didn't even have to turn on with the install points.
It didn't. It could have ran install only and won. And and that's not a slam on anybody else. That's just the way the rules were written. There were a ton of great cars that year, and it's just the way the rules were written. And so, like I said, it's competition, man. We're all older now, and it's a lot more fun. And we were a lot more serious than we were back then. Than maybe we are now. So.
Well, speaking of serious, so like I said, we're going in the 7th iteration of Aggieland, which as of earlier this year, you had announced was canceled. And like everything else you do, once you decide you're not going to do it, then you decide you are going to do it, and then we just do crazy stuff. So
that's me. I have a hard time. Really bad about that when I was like, oh, I'm never going to do this again, and it's like SEMA every year. I'm never going to do this again, and then I do something worse the next year or crazier the next year. So the whole antithesis behind wanting to not do it wasn't because of not wanting to do this show.
Right.
It's because the store where we were, and this is also our 10-year anniversary for Mobile Toys. So the store, what it was 10 years ago or even 7 years ago when we started doing this, is a different entity than what it is now.
Right.
For us to do a show like Aggieland, it basically kills a Saturday of business. Sunday we're closed, so no big deal. But it kills a Saturday of business. And no matter what advertising we do, or it doesn't matter, it's not going to be a good sale day. It just isn't.
Right.
The competition, as long as we've always lived by the thing, as long as the competition is a wash and we just walk out, even at the end of it, we're fine, because it's always been our gift back to everybody else. We've never done it to make a dime, and never will. But as the company's grown bigger, for us to take a Saturday off is a big deal, money wise.
Right.
It's a good day. There was that, and dude, I mean, from what I did, 7 years ago to what I do now, I mean, it's a totally light years different. It's stressful. And, I wasn't going to do it again. I was like, this is it. I'm out of it. I don't want to do it anymore. Let somebody else carry this torch. But after about probably 100 phone calls from everybody, and I don't remember how many messages and emails, I don't, not that no one could do it, but I don't know that anybody could do it the way that I do it. I don't know that anybody wants to commit that kind of insanity to it. Not that they couldn't. I'm sure they could, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to organize the kind of money that we put together for it and stuff. You have to have a store that does big numbers, because you're going to be going to your vendors. You're going to be going, the only way they're going to give you prize money or stuff to sponsor your prize money is if you do numbers to back it up. So we kind of feel like it's our job to do it. With it being our 10-year anniversary, we wanted to do something special to make it that much bigger this year, kind of our 10-year anniversary party. And we wanted to do something to bring the old school people out. And so that's really where we are now and what we're going to do with it.
So to be clear, so everybody knows, because I think both of us have got this question over and over again, but there's Aggieland, just like Aggieland's always been, $5,000, prize, top 30 money round, and then the $5,000 is essentially spread over the top 10.
Yes, it is.
In addition to that, we're doing the Sound Quality Challenge. That's a $10,000 winner take all purse, and doing late 90s rules. We're going to have Doug Winker is head judge. James Feltenberger put together the music for it. I think we're going to announce probably in the next month or two as far as for sure who the judges are and everything, but it's all 2-seat sound quality, install, RTA, SPL combined format. So it's truly old school rules. You run what you brought and do it all, and winner takes all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the deal. So, what we wanted to do for Aggieland this year was, obviously, this is I would be incorrect in saying that it was my idea. I mean, I've had this idea in the back of my head, but I'm one of many people that said, man, it'd be cool to bring everybody back and do something old school. Biggs and me sat down multiple times and talked about this, and what really pushed it over the edge was, and I'll be honest, was Gary. So we're sitting at Heatwave this past year, and Gary and me are just sitting there. We're chatting it up. We're sitting there in the booth, and he's talking about it, and Gary's like, you know what? That's what you should do. You should old school rules, 2-seat sound, and get the vendors to pump in some more money, and do that. Still do Aggieland, but do this too. And so I'm sitting there, and I spend the rest of the weekend, at the event thinking about this, and then I think, if I'm correct, I think I called you Sunday when I was leaving the event. I was like, dude, this is what we're going to do. And you're like, what? I was like, yes.
I thought we were doing Aggieland.
I thought we were going to do it anymore. I said, no, we're going to totally make it bigger. So we want the 1-seat guys, and we want to continue to do that. We want to continue to support that and push it. And we're going to do the $5,000 top 30 like we've always done. The traditional Aggie trophy, the Aggieland trophy will obviously be back. And that will all continue on as it always has. But for this year and this year only, we want to throw it back to the old school. We want to make it the way it was, even if it's only one time, which it probably will be.
Right.
But for one weekend, we want to try to make it like it was in 98, 97, 96, that kind of time frame,
right.
Those, mid to late 90s, when it was really, this is what it was. And if you won back then, if you won back then, you did something. You actually had beat some cars, because back then there were tons of great installers. There's not great installers now, but it seemed like everybody was competing. Everybody was building cars, and the everybody was pushing, and it was all new. And so we want to go take it back there. And I think the way you entice people out is, you tell them, hey, you got a chance to win $10K. You win this event, you're taking home $10,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I ain't never won $10,000 doing anything, much less a car audio competition.
Right.
And to me, I'm just mad because I never get to compete in these things. So,
and your car doesn't have 2 seats.
Oh, that's true. It doesn't. But nonetheless, I never get to compete in anything. So, that's what I do, and I like being able to do it for guys. I'm not getting anything out of it. I'm not making any money off of the deal.
Right.
It's something to do our part to help promote the industry, a little more, and help promote cardio competition.
Well, and the thing that's cool about it too is it's truly combining everything back again the way it was, so people can really see how many times have you heard people say, "Well, I've got this car sitting here, it's ready to come, but it's built for this or it's built for that. It's it's 2-seat and it's made to do SPL and install and everything. Okay, here you go. It's all there. Come and do it."
Yeah, yeah, and dude, there are a lot of cars that what's as amazing is after putting the list together is how many people now say, hey, I want to do it, and I'm going to build a car to go do that. And I'm like, holy crap. We may have, as much as I can say I'm probably not single-handedly, but partially responsible for the rise of 1-seat cars. If I can do my part to bring it back to 2-seat, that would be great. And if this helps, then awesome. Then we've definitely done our job.
Right. And so everybody knows there's a lot of final things to put into place, obviously, but SPL will be capped.
It will be.
Creative elements will be capped. Obviously, your car will have to do it all, but nobody's going to win by a landslide because of one thing.
No.
It's got to do it all. Without further ado, do you have the list of those invited to this round?
Do we? I don't know. Do we have it? That's a really good question.
I've got the list that we first had working on.
Well, I'm trying to find it right now. I don't know if everybody is on this list, and that's the one thing that we've been working on. So I believe I have a complete list. So the tentative list that I have, and I say tentative because final invites will go out here in the next week. But the tentative list I have goes a little bit something like this. There's a couple odds and ends of people that are still on the maybes that I'm not going to announce yet. So, but This is the tentative list of invites that we're sending out. And we've talked to a lot of these guys. So, you're looking Gary Biggs, Mickey Bronis, Dan Merritt, James Davidson, Mr. Ben Vollmer, Scott Bawalda, Scott Welch, Mark Eldridge, Corey Himmel, Chad Bowie, Steve Head, Brian Mitchell, Jeff Smith, Larry Ing, Robert Corwin, Tim Smith, Charles Haley, Harold Jones, Leonardo Leal, which he is wanting to bring 2 cars, Brian Piper, and Mr. John Marsh.
Nice.
That's our tentative list of the initial invite that we've put together of guys that we've talked to that would be interested in doing it. And of that list, we have 10 that are confirmed already because we've already received emails back from those guys.
Yeah,
so
I think we started out hoping that we'd have like 8. So this is pretty good.
there are other guys. There are multiple guys who have contacted me that have asked if we would be willing to send out an invite. We will ultimately send out 25 invites. That's what we're going to send out, not a penny more. And we ultimately expect, I'm expecting about 15 cars to 20 cars, which would be great.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that really, really wants to do it, dude, all they got to do is call us. I'm not. These are our ultimate invites because these are cars that we've researched and guys we've looked at that we feel like are definitely at the top of their game, definitely doing fantastic. Their cars sound awesome, they look awesome, they definitely know old school because they've been around a long time, just like all of us have. We don't know everybody and may have missed some stuff. And if there's some guys out there that want to do it, we want them there. We want them to come out. We want them to play. So ultimately, and that list we send when we post this list up, if I missed you, don't take it as a slight. Get on the phone and call me and say, hey, what about me? I'm like, well, if you want to do it, let's do it. You know, because this is going to be for everybody. But remember, it's going to be old school rules with old school judges. I mean, I've got some install judges that lined up. It's going to be old school, man. It's not going to be, hey, that battery looks sufficiently mounted. They're going to yank on it.
Right.
That amp looks sufficiently mounted. They're going to yank on it. It's going to be done just like old school was done. That's the way it should be, at least for one weekend, you know, for sure.
Right. Yeah, this isn't the one to come to walk away feeling good. It's the one to know how you stacked up and a chance to win 10 grand. So it's going to hurt. It's
going to be a phenomenal event. We're still obviously organizing the details, but it is going to be. We are going to have it at the Expo Center here in Bryan College Station this year. We're going to have it in their parking lot, and what we're going to do is we're going to rent a huge 140-foot long by 30-foot deep tent, and it's really long tent. And there's going to be we're going to have 7 lanes, and that's what we're going to do. And everybody's going to drive through this year. We're not going to have judges come into cars. So there's going to be a lane for IASC, a lane for Mecca. There's going to be 3 lanes for the Aggieland standard money round that we've done every year, our traditional money round. Then there'll be 2 lanes for the old school round. Now, from there, there'll be a couple more tents for the next things for install and then RTA and SPL at the end of it. It's going to be, we're going to run it old school, and we want the whole weekend that way. We want to give it an old school vibe. We want to have, like I said, for one weekend, it will be cool for it to be the way it was. And, if that rubs off on everybody and they like it, then who knows? We'll see where it goes. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
And also with that, we're doing it about a month earlier than usual, so it's going to be April 27 and 28. So it should hopefully be a little bit cooler outside.
I can promise you that it'll be a lot cooler than it normally is. Usually it's a solid 105 degrees in the parking lot. At late April in College Station, you're still low 80s. So it's very, very comfortable. The cool thing is we're going to have tents. We're going to have it to where, rain or shine, we're still going to do this.
Yeah, and the sooner that everybody who is going to commit to coming can do that, because we're also putting together an old school style magazine during the event.
Yes.
So we're going to have some bios of some competitor spotlights, some bios on the judges that are involved, some advertisements for the manufacturer sponsors and that. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be going back in time about 20 years.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's not going to be something that anybody's done in a long, long time. And, everyone always says, you see them post online or DIY or DEMA or, on Strictly Sound Quality, man, I wish it was like the good old days. Well, for one weekend, here's your shot. Here's your chance.
It's going to be 1997 2019.
Yeah, we'll make it 1997 for you for one weekend. So I want to see everybody out there. Even if you don't come to compete, come to hang out. Come to hang out. We'll sing Kumbaya and roast some s'mores. It'd be great.
Going back to you for a second, like I said in the opening, you've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot, especially in a fairly short period of time compared to a lot of people that are involved in the industry. I'm not even going to put up one. What would be like a top 2 for you in accomplishments during your time in car audio?
It really depends. If you talk about competition just overall, one thing. Overall, winning installer of the year, is probably one of the biggest accomplishments ever, and obviously winning retailer of the year last year. There's a lot that goes into that. A lot can be said for either of the things. I have a lot of guys that I respect immensely and I think are much, much better than me that I've learned from. And they were fortunate enough to take me under their wing and show me some things. And that's super rad. Guys like Gary Bigg, Jeremy Katz, Jeremy Carlson, Gary Bell, JT, all my buddies, and actually for those of my crew, and Brian, Brian Schmidt. So I've been super fortunate to have these people around me over the years. And, if I needed something, they were always willing to help, or they were always willing to, show me how to do something. To have that opportunity to grow and even, it's been, a dynamic change, I think, over the last 3 years. And part of that's, I played in a band for, 20 years. And when you divide yourself creatively, it's really hard to focus. Gary used to tell me, he goes, you can be good at a lot of things, but it's really hard to be great at something unless you're going to focus on it.
Right.
And really, our dynamic change happened 3 years ago. Whenever I decided I wasn't going to tour anymore, I wasn't going to do music. I was going to devote everything to being the best of whatever version of myself I could make myself as an installer, and make my store as good as it could possibly be. And the store's always done well, but it's been a dynamic change for us business wise. And to be installer of the year, it's a lot of work. It just about killed me to do it. I wasn't home a whole lot. You feel like
Right.
every install, you have to push it. You have to push it to the max. And, people can say, well, this person, that person, you know what, that comes with anything. I'll be the first to tell you that comes with anything you do. If you're going to try to be the best at something, you're going to know people, period.
Right.
End of story.
You got to know people,
but
right?
The only way, you have to know people, because nobody does it on their own, period. In the story. You don't do it on your own. And you're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked your entire career. At least that's how it was for me. I wasn't going to leave any doubt. I wasn't going to leave any wiggle room, whether you loved me, whether you hated me, whether you were my friend or not my friend. I wanted you to I wanted that year everyone to walk away and say, you know what? He earned that. No one gave it to him. He went out and killed and worked his hands till they bled, and threw it all on the table, and he did it. And that was my goal. That was the whole mantra from the word go. And that's probably, to me, that's my biggest accomplishment in the industry. It was a very proud moment, because we had a plan, we executed the plan, and we were able to complete the task and get there, and to represent every other installer. There's so many amazing ones, to be able to say, you're the installer of the year that year, and to represent them and represent the industry is a big deal, for what we do. So, that's definitely a very proud moment, and having my mom there and my dad there and my kids there and my wife there was just, you just never know how it's going to turn out. And it was really a great moment to have them all there. And it was a lot. It was a great time. So,
what would be your advice to up and coming first year, second year competitor, especially, I know we see our fair share at some of these shows, but what would you suggest to them to get beyond that first couple year struggle of competing in car audio?
Remember, you if you think you're going to walk in there and win a first place trophy, you're going in with the wrong attitude. Shoot, I competed, gosh darn it. I want to say that it was a solid 6 or 7 years before I finally won a championship title. I don't think I ever placed out of the top 4 from 2000 on, but I never won anything. Like, I never won my classic finals.
Right.
Because I was always building cars for other people, and the guys I built cars for would win. But you use that same mantra, it's gonna take time. And if you just because you spent a bunch of money or you bought a bunch of stuff or you paid an installer to go out and win, that's the wrong attitude to have. First and foremost, go to learn and go to have fun.
Right.
And then once you're well versed and once you have a grasp of what's going on, that doesn't mean you're going to know everything, because you're going to be learning stuff from here to the day you die, at least if you do it right.
Right.
Winning is just another start to the next thing. Just because you win doesn't mean you're done, and it doesn't mean that you've accomplished anything. It just means that chapter's finished, and now you have another chapter to go do.
Yeah.
And greatness is never given. You pay rent on it every day. And to be really good or great at something or whatever that is, whatever you want to call that, man, you're going to have to go and learn. And that's what I tell kids. I was like, the new guys coming up, man, learn, listen to the guys who've been doing it a long time. And maybe it's not the right advice. Sometimes they give you terrible advice. I've probably given out plenty of terrible advice. And sometimes you got to look at something. I'm not going to do that. That's a terrible idea. See, you've learned something. You've learned something not to do. So, but listen, take the time to listen and take that knowledge in. And I think that's a big deal. I really think that is, go enjoy. It's a community. There's a lot of great guys out there and a lot of good things to be a part of. So,
and I think some of your advice there overlaps into your philosophies on the retail side as well, right? I'd say the majority of the superstars that you've also developed have been the new guys coming in with no experience, but are willing to put in the work and willing to listen and putting everything they can into learning the craft. And they end up, within a year or two, excelling far beyond some of the guys who've been in it for a long time.
We have two guys in particular on our staff. Well, Edgar's been with us for just now coming up on 3 years. He has, just totally, morphed into this kid who was never worked in an install bay a day in his life. He was doing stuff out of his garage. He saw Mark Clitty and Miguel Vega and a couple other guys just doing stuff online, and into this world-class installer, phenomenal builder, phenomenal fabricator. And what's great is knows sound quality, knows what sounds good, knows what doesn't sound good, learning to tune a car and learning how to set up a car, and has got a grasp of it to the point where he has a great sounding vehicle. He likes doing competitions and knows his stuff. And I tell guys all the time, that is the prime example of somebody who wants to do it and wants to learn it. Right. And so from the retailer side, here's somebody who you have to have a passion for it. You got to remember, this is supposed to be fun. At the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. And if it's not fun, then you probably shouldn't do it. But that's the goal. It's supposed to be fun. And, whether you're doing it for a living, whether you're doing it as a hobby, it's supposed to be fun. Go learn. Don't stop learning. Go learn. Go figure it out.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good ways to do that. So
the last 1.5 questions. If you had a piece of music to evaluate a system and a piece of music to jam out on a system, what would they be?
There is a ton of great stuff out there. And it really, when you come down to something, I think the first thing I'm going to do every single time, I'm going to turn on Dire Straits. It's like a given. I'm going to turn on Dire Straits, and I'm probably going to turn on Telegraph Road. And that's the first one I'm going to evaluate the system to. And then if to jam, I'm probably going to put money for nothing right after it, because I know what I'm going to get every time. I know, either your car sounds good on it or it doesn't sound good on it. If I have to pick a third one, it'd be on every street. But it's still Dire Straits. Every time. I've picked other tracks to evaluate cars too. I know on SQology there's a high-res AC/DC track that I like. And some people are like, why would you pick that track? Well, I like to hear how cars sound on normal music. Differentiate, different guitar tones, because being a guitar player for 20 years, 20 plus years, it's something I know. I know what it sounds like tonally. It's just memory muscle to figure it all out. But Dire Straits, man, it's easy. Either the car sounds good or it doesn't sound good, and either it's on or it's not. The vocal's there or it's not there. The layering is there or it's not there, and it's just boom every time. I love to listen to them. Sound quality tracks are great, but it's a lot cooler when you can listen to it and really enjoy it.
Right. Again, like you said, it's about enjoying it, right?
Absolutely.
All right, man. You got anything else you want to share?
No, man, that's it, dude. It's been awesome. It's definitely been a pleasure chatting it up, and hopefully people, get something out of it. That's all I care about. If I can help people, that's what I'm here to do.
Absolutely, man. Well, we appreciate it, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Take care, bud.